Hello, guys, and welcome back to the Rovers Report, where you join us early in the morning, where me and Tom are going to be reviewing last night's victory against MK Dons. Now, that's 2 wins in two for Rovers, and for me personally, I feel like that could be somewhat of a turning point for us. I wasn't actually able to watch the game last night, but I know you were, Tom. If you just want to sort of give us a brief summary of how you felt the game went.
Yeah, sure, mate, and glad to be back on the channel. I mean, it was a bit of a drab affair in the first half, to be honest. We were quite flat and quite narrow. I know we were playing with effectively three strikers. MK didn't really offer anything, and the same in the second half, to be honest. We did seem to keep the ball quite well at times. We didn't really create many forays or any real chances, but in the second half we were a lot better and started to use the ball a bit more. Won a few set pieces and thoroughly deserved to win, to be honest. I mean, I think our XG was 1.44 and MK's was about 0.1. So, yeah, it's a very good win, and I think hopefully, as you said, the start of a turning point in the season. Um, but it's the sort of game that we should be winning.
Mm. And yeah, because I went to the Cambridge home game, and it was interesting to see. He's obviously looked at that three at the back and thought, "No, I'm not going to run with that." And he's sort of gone with a. I think when it on Saturday for me, it felt like a 4-3-1-2 almost, and it seemed like it was a similar sort of team last night. And it's again, it's just strange. I think Barton has a bit of a reputation for being this sort of trying to be this pseudo tactical genius, where we've played three at the back when we don't have the players, and now our players that would fit that system have come back. He's not playing that, but
Yeah.
it seems to be working, doesn't it? And Gibbons has come back in and been fantastic. So has Gibson. And somebody actually I'd want to shine a bit of a light on. I'm not sure how he played last night, but Jordan Rossiter was fantastic on Saturday. And was he right in the midst of it again last night?
Yeah, I was going to mention that he was one of the standout players for me, the sort of player that, we really sort of missed when he was suspended in terms of the fact that he's been playing like this since he's come back. Obviously, I think he was a bit disappointing before suspension, but it's a sort of player that we knew that he could be. So, it's really pleasing. He was breaking up play. He was here, there, everywhere, um, neat and tidy on the ball. So, it was kind of like an ideal performance from him playing in that fit midfield with Coots, who I thought was excellent, and back to sort of the Coots of last season with just being solid on the ball and being able to calm things down, but also dictate the tempo of the game. So I think Roster was probably one, maybe even man of the match for me, to be honest. It was a really good performance from him overall. Very impressive.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, mate? Because obviously, we've been heavy advocates of let's not judge too early because we're only sort of 8 or 9 games in, and you've got to sort of apply that logic to this. Is sort of one swallow doesn't make a summer. So, like, fair enough, we've had two victories against, Cambridge are a decent side. MK Dons, by all account, have been poor this season. So, as much as it's 2 wins and two great performances, there's another test against Cheltenham this weekend, and then we're into a tough run of fixtures. But it's funny, isn't it, mate? Because we sort of gave this summer, I think it was a 5 or 6 out of 10 for recruitment, and suddenly in the last two games, Coburn looked fantastic on Saturday. Ross to suddenly come into his own. Gibbons has been fantastic as well. So it is interesting how quickly these things can change, isn't it, mate?
It is, mate, and I think it does come down to consistency because we could lose our next two games and it would be we'd be in
Mm,
the doldrums again. So I think as you said, it's important to not get ahead of ourselves and to also just concentrate on next game. I know it's beginning to sound a bit like Darrell Clark there, but just concentrate on each game, and yeah, I think take it as it comes. Cheltenham is a winnable fixture. Um, I'm not sure how they've gone on Saturday, but yeah, I think if we stick with this formation, which I'm a big fan of a 4-3-3, whether that's like a flat front three or sort of playing with wingers. I did feel like I mean, I guess it was part of the game plan last night, but we did lack a lot of width in the first
mm,
half. Um, that sort of did change. The thing is, if you play with three midfield and a flat three of strikers up top, you need midfield runners in the channels,
mm.
and we didn't really have that from Maka and Roster. I know that's not really Roster's style of play, but Maka didn't really offer that. But Finley did when he came on. And I think Finley changed the game in that respect. I think obviously Rossiter was probably the consistent player throughout 90 minutes, but Finley, played incredibly well. He was sort of the Sam Finley of last season.
Yeah.
I know he's had some good games this season, but also dropped some absolute clangers. So that was another pleasing thing to see. And then it was obviously pleasing to see Evo score the penno, and I think hopefully that means he can push on as well.
Yeah. Well, Ever had a good game on Saturday as well, man. It's interesting in that midfield three now, isn't it? If that's the formation we're going to play going forwards, there's what is it? Is it 5 or 6 players all fighting for those three spots? And I'll say what I think I'd probably go for, and then it'll be interesting to hear what you think, mate. But at the minute, I think Rossiter has to start because you sort of said the Sam Finley role of last season, but I do think, man, it obviously shows because he's played at high levels that he's almost Coots and Finley rolled into one. He does sit and do Coots' job of sort of dictating and being that quarterback, but he's not afraid to get in amongst it either. I haven't quite seen him have the sort of attacking thrust that Finley offers sometimes, so maybe that's lacking. But at the minute, he'd definitely start for me. And then I think I'd probably go with Finley and Ever. In that midfield, you've sort of got everything there. You've got tenacity, you've got control on the ball, and then obviously with Evo, that he's got that bit of quality. So yeah, I really like it, mate. Your point about width is something that might need to be addressed, but in terms of creativity, having Evo and Colin sort of sitting behind the strikers, that works for me. And then you've got two very hard-working, very powerful, strong, quick strikers. So. Yeah, sorry. Going back to the original, what sort of three would you think you'd be playing there in the midfield?
I think that would probably be the three for me as well, especially at home. If we're playing away, then I'd be tempted to maybe slot Coots in for Evo perhaps, but and play him as sort of the linchpin. So no, I think that's good, mate. It's a Scouse trio, isn't it? Rossiter, Finley, and Evo. Yeah, so I think that sort of combines the sort of defensive stability and attacking creativity that our midfield does possess. The one thing I'd worry about would be physicality, perhaps. Rossiter and Finley are quite short, and Evo is not, I guess, physically imposing despite being quite tall. So I think that's probably the midfield going forward, and I think the back four looked pretty solid last night as well. I know Bobby Thomas isn't technically, going to be spraying balls left, right, and centre and playing out from the back like prime Beckenbauer, but he's certainly
a lot, mate.
Yeah, it's actually thinking about it. I was thinking of maybe a lower league centre half I could compare him to, but nobody sort of sprung to mind. But I think you can see that he's a very, very good defender, and the same goes to Lewis Gibson. We've got Beefy coming back, who obviously could arguably start. And then, as you said, I think Gibbons has been fantastic since he's come back. He's just an all-round solid fullback who can get forward and into the channels. And a big shout out to Lewis Gordon as well last night, who showed that he's clearly a very good footballer. I think obviously he's still getting used to senior football, having played only under 23s and B team stuff at Brentford. So I think it's started to take shape, mate, and credit to Joey because the players have come back from injury and we've started performing a lot better. But, I feel like we're still punching below our weight where we are on the table. So this needs to continue, and hopefully that starts on Saturday.
Yeah, I might be sort of jumping the gun a little bit here, but it did sort of have the feeling of that Bradford game last season. Sort of, I know we didn't win it late on or anything, well, particularly late on. But, 2 wins in 2, if we can go to Cheltenham and get a result, that's really good form going into our tough fixtures. And, I think Sheffield Wednesday, although similar to how we said about Ipswich, we should never go there expecting to lose or just wanting a draw. I think you could almost sort of write that game off a little bit. But, when we go to the likes of Derby and stuff, we should definitely be going there thinking we can win, can't we? So it's frustrating, isn't it? Because you see results like this in the last 2 games, and the team's playing well, morale's high, and you sort of think, you know what, we could do really well here, and then you get one humbling result and it completely switches your mood on the team. So yeah, to be honest, mate, I'm excited for the next couple of games. I think if we can keep the majority of our players fit, it looks like quite exciting times for Rovers fans. And who is it that we've got to come back? It's Beefy, Josh Grant, isn't it? And then Marcus is out for a couple of weeks, isn't he?
Yeah, he is.
Is that it after that?
Off the top of my head, that's who I can think about, to be honest. So I think like we're sort of nearly there in terms of a fully fit squad. To think that obviously about a month ago it was the complete opposite is obviously annoying and frustrating considering we had tougher fixtures back then. As you said, we got some tough fixtures coming up, but we can't be sort of playing the victim in terms of saying that they're a big club. I've never understood it if you think like that in League One, because you see teams like Accrington, Stanley beating bigger teams over the last few years. So I don't see why we can't go to these teams and get a good result. To be honest, it's not obviously not easy, but you need a game plan and you need to execute it very well. So, and for me that includes not going all out attack, but also playing a lineup that can counter these teams. So fingers crossed that we sort of go through the next sort of set of fixtures and pick up a few points, but that starts with 3 at Cheltenham on Saturday.
Exactly, mate. And it's sort of like Barton's. He bemoaned the fact that he didn't have all his players there for him, and now he has them. So it's sort of like go out there and sort of set them free. And especially in the attacking department, it really excites me. We've got Josh Coburn, who's fresh, he's strong, he's young, and you've got.
He reminds me of Haaland, mate.
I know there is sort of shades of that, isn't there?
Just the way he moves, and he's of the same build.
Mate, and
maybe too early to call him the Teesside Haaland somehow.
I think that the fans get carried away, mate. There was actually a moment on Saturday where he sort of had a mazy run where he dribbled past a few players, and that had real shades of Elliot Anderson. So if he's half as good a player as him, mate, I'll be delighted. But I think we'll finish it there, mate, as we've both got to get off. But we'll be doing another video sometime this week, either a preview or reaction video. So if you've enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. Let us know your thoughts on our 2 wins in 2 and how you think we're going to do in the future. And thanks as always, mate, for coming on.
Thanks, mate. Always a pleasure.
Cheers, pal.